You're listening to The Mountain Spirit, a podcast of Christian Appalachian Project. I'm a firm believer that we are all connected by our shared humanity, and that finding that intersection sometimes just means having a conversation. Today we get to hear from Melissa Helton, Literary Arts Director at Heinemann Settlement School. She has been a part of the Heinemann writing community since 2015. In late July 2022, a catastrophic flash flood claimed the lives of more than 40 people and devastated homes and communities in central Appalachia. The 45th Annual Appalachian Writers Workshop at Heinemann Settlement School in East Kentucky was in progress when surging floodwater forced the participants and staff to rush to higher ground. The school lost classrooms, housing, and gathering areas, as well as valuable equipment and irreplaceable artifacts, such as historical books and documents and photographs. Handmade musical instruments from the school archives were also damaged in the flooding. As the floodwaters receded throughout the region, countless lives were forever changed. You all know that from listening to our previous podcast about the flood and CAP's response to that. And from that experience in Heinemann, there was born an anthology called Troublesome Rising, a 1,000-year flood in East Kentucky. Helton edited this work from well-known and emerging Appalachian writers who were able to share the depths of the flood's devastation through their own lens. Hi, Melissa. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get in, so I give you more time to talk and less time for me to talk. So for those who may not have heard of the book, I wonder if you could start by just reading us a sample.
Okay, happy to. I'd love to read one of the poems by Carrie Gunter Seymour. She's the Ohio State Poet Laureate, and we're happy to have her as part of our writing family. And her poem is called Bluegrass Navy. Destruction wasn't the only story, though Eastern Kentucky did have a catastrophic collapse. Water as high as 14.5 feet above flood stage. There were graphic images plastered across news outlets, and national figures flash danced for the cameras. Meanwhile, Kentuckians rescued their own selves. Truckers, teachers, nurses, preachers, generations of bluegrass-born arrived from all parts of the state and nation, towing bass boats, driving Fords and Chevys filled with tow ropes, chainsaws, beef jerky, bottled water, pet food. Folks spontaneously set up grills in Walmart parking lots to fill empty bellies. Kinship strong as the granite and iron from which the Appalachians themselves were formed. Showed the rest of the world how it's done. In John boats, on jet skis, inside rescue centers and emergency shelters. No sleep for days, looking after their own.
Wow. That is what we witness as well for CAP, just going out and seeing neighbors helping neighbors, like not waiting to be saved by someone from the outside, but rolling up your sleeves and doing what was necessary to save their communities. Why was that the piece you picked out of all the pieces included in the book, and why did it resonate with you?
Yeah, I think, thinking about hope and recovery and strength and resilience, this piece came to mind. And also, it talks about Kentuckians coming and saving their own. But like you said, we saw outpouring from Kentuckians, from people across Appalachia, the people that pulled up into our parking lot with grills to start feeding our community in the first days. There were a couple guys who drove up from West Virginia. And my first experience of driving toward Heinemann, I was not there the night of the flood. So I watched that first day on the phone on social media. But then when I got to drive to work the next day, it was that first moment when I realized how bad it was going to be stepping on campus, because I saw a pickup truck had driven up from Florida, had Florida plates, and it had 3 generators in the bed of the truck, and they were just coming up to donate it. And that was my first real life experience and interaction with the flood, was just seeing the generosity of regular people coming to coming to help us out.
Yeah. So we'll talk quite a bit about Hyman today. For those who may not be familiar with Hyman Settlement School, can you tell us a little bit sort of the history of the school and the Appalachian Writers Conference as well?
We were founded in 1902. Two women, Catherine Pettit and May Stone, had come down here the 3 summers previous to that, doing tent schools, teaching the kids and also the adults around here. Solomon Everidge walked barefoot, that legend says, to a hazard where the women were in the summer of 1901 and said, "I'll donate my land to you if you'll come to Knott County and build a school for my greats and grands." He donated 200 acres. And so the women founded the school in 1902. And we were basically a boarding school up until the 70s. When there was no longer a need for that, we started to transition into a nonprofit. So our 4 main programs, we have dyslexia and literacy tutoring, which we've been doing for 40, 50 years. We have foodways and gardening, agricultural programming, the traditional arts like music and dance and quilting, and then the literary arts, so all the written stuff. And that's what I'm honored to be a part of. So that's our 4 main programs now.
And the Appalachian Writers Conference has been around for how long?
This is the 49th year, and it's a week in the summer in July where writers come from across Kentucky and across Appalachia, but we get writers coming down from Brooklyn and from Seattle, Washington every year. They stay a week on campus and they work with well-respected and wonderful writers, and they get to be in community with each other. And it's the only place I've ever seen people get excited about washing dishes for 100 people because everybody has to sign up to be on dish crew. People get real excited about those kinds of community building. We got to snap beans for supper, and people will pile up on the porches to work. It's because they love the community and they love the experience so much.
So tell me about Troublesome Rising. How did that project come together, and how did you get or decide to become involved in it?
Hyman Settlement School, we have a publishing imprint called Fireside Industries, and that's through the University Press of Kentucky. And Silas House, who is the current Kentucky State Poet Laureate, he is the main editor for that series. So he picks 2 or 3 books a year to publish. But since I was on the ground, UPK asked me if I would edit an anthology because this was happening during the week of Writers' Workshop. And so we had 60 people physically on campus going through the flood. And we had about 30 others who were at hotels and Airbnbs in the region. If you have 100 of your region's best writers go through an event like this, like we were joking, just the next Saturday after the flood, we managed to get a Wi-Fi signal, and we were doing like an emergency Zoom, checking in on our friends because like 12 of them had lost vehicles, and so was taking this person to there so they could catch a ride to get to the airport. And we were just trying to check up on our friends and make sure everybody was making it home okay. And then also the writers were saying, okay, they were already organizing. What do we do? How can we help? Somebody made a joke on that Zoom that Saturday of like, okay, when is the submission deadline going to be? Because, we were like, of course, we're going to make a book about this. And little could I have dreamed that I would be the editor for it, because this was such a life-changing event for me and my writers and my school and my community that it'll forever be something that I was honored to have been able to usher into the world.
What is the power? You talked a lot about the writers. So this was emerging writers and veteran writers. Talked about Silas House, which many people know as well. What's the power of having people share their own stories in their own words?
For anybody, being able to tell your truth or to tell the truth as you see it is tremendously powerful. Dorothy Allison, when she gave the keynote a couple years ago, she said, we write to set the record straight. And especially if you belong to groups that haven't been the ones whose story has been told. So we're looking at Appalachians. Your stories weren't the main stories being told. And so when you're able to tell your story, there's power for you as an individual, but also you're setting the record straight. Especially in Appalachia, outsiders came here and told the rest of the world what Appalachia was like. And they got a lot of things terribly wrong. And then there was that first wave of literature coming out where Appalachians were getting published, but they were mostly men. They were mostly white people. And so now we're in this great third wave of Appalachian literature where we're getting more nuance. We're seeing the broader, deeper picture of things. And I think the more truth we have and the more understanding we have, that can only be a good thing. I think a lot of people who have complicated stories to tell turn to the arts, whether it manifests in a painting or a poem. That can be a healing experience for them, but also the community as a whole.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing about that healing journey that is expressed through the arts, and then a way for other people to also heal as they, appreciate it or read it or view it. It's a very communal kind of experience as well.
You only get to live one life, but through reading, you can understand and experience to some degree an infinite number of other lives. I'm only me, but I can read a Zen poet writing 2,000 years ago and see what's common between this man and me, and also what's different. And we can learn more about the human condition and learn more about ourselves by reading the writings and experiences of others.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You can make this summer into a season of service and have a lifetime of impact on youth in Appalachia. Join us in the great outdoors by becoming a camp counselor at one of our 2 beautiful camps in eastern Kentucky. Room and board, stipend, travel reimbursement, and educational award are available. Apply today at christianapp.org/volunteer. That is christianapp.org/volunteer.
So what drew you to this work? We said in your intro that you've been connected to this writing community at Hyman since 2015. So imagine when you were a kid and you're thinking, what am I going to do when I grow up, or who am I going to be? Was this on your radar, or did you end up on some journey to get to this place?
It's a long journey. Because growing up, writing was always something I did, but it wasn't something that, I don't know, I didn't think to study it. I went and got an environmental studies degree. I had debated being a high school art teacher, and I was working at a car factory in Detroit, and then I was like, this is terrible. So I went back and got a poetry degree, and then I was teaching at colleges and universities. And when I moved down to Kentucky with my ex-husband, we wanted to raise our children in Appalachia, which he was from here. I was teaching at a community college here in southeastern Kentucky, and I met Robert Gipe. Robert Gipe is a fiction writer. He's got 3 great illustrated novels out, and he was an Appalachian studies teacher at my school, and he said, you need to get to Heinemann. And that sentence, there's those pivotal moments in your life, and that sentence was one that completely changed my life. I applied to come to Writers Workshop, and I didn't get in the first year. I'm like driving the ship now, and I didn't get in the first time, which I need to find out who was reading, judging manuscripts that year. But so I came and immediately fell in love with the community. And one of the magical things about Writers Workshop is you have, like you said, you've got people who they don't have a single publication, all the way up to somebody like George Ella Lyon, who's literally published 50, 60 books, and then you get to sit and have lunch with Wendell Berry, and you get to sit and hear Nikki Giovanni speak about her writing. And it's a phenomenal, magical kind of thing. And especially when you don't have hierarchy. I was washing dishes with George Ella before I knew she was, the poet laureate of the state of Kentucky. Having that embrace of immediate creative family and community, it's like a drink of water to somebody dying of thirst. So it's a real magical place. And so I was coming here for all those years while I was teaching at the community college. And then COVID happened and all this upheaval happened. And when I saw the job opening here, I was like, well, I never had a dream job, but this is it. I was blessed to get it. And then just getting my feet under me. And then 6 months later, the flood hit and everything changed again.
Well, we're backing our way into your personal story a little bit. What was it like for you being a first generation college student, and how did that shape how you approached your college experience?
My mother was valedictorian of her high school back in 1960. They wouldn't let her give a valedictorian speech because she was a girl. Now, my mother's 84 this year, 83 this year. She's over it. It still burns me up. I'm still mad for her.
It burns me up too. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And so then she was real brilliant. She still is, but she went to college for a year or two, and then she met her first husband, and she got what they called the MRS degree. She got married. She didn't want to be a teacher or a nurse, so she didn't need college. So she didn't finish. My father was an immigrant. He was done with school when he was about 16, and then he joined the army in England where he was living. But they always valued education. They always pushed me toward it, and it was always something I was good at and enjoyed. But so as a first generation college student, I didn't have a lot of guidance. Things, even small things like, my parents didn't know there were study abroad programs to push me toward applying for and things like that. But because of that, I went all the way. I was the first to get the bachelor's, and then I got the master's, and I was like, just because, to kind of reset the balance of what my mother had gone through, I was like, I'm going to get a doctorate. I just went all the way. And for my mother and then my two daughters, they were 80% of the reason why I got that degree, was to my generational neighbors, to for the sake of correcting the balance of what had, and then to also inspire my children, that we can do these big things.
So what brought you hope, Melissa, when you were growing up? And following the floods, what brought you hope when you saw the devastation on the campus and in Eastern Kentucky? What grounds you in hope?
I would have to ponder longer on that to know and to get back into my child mindset and try to figure that out. But definitely what brought me a lot of hope in the flood recovery was what we would expect, to see the outpouring of love and care and donations and consideration, and how immediate that response was. People pulling up that first day with bottles of water, people sending money, the UPS truck would pull up onto campus and offload 40, 50, 60 boxes of things that people had bought and sent to campus for us, but also for the community. And because we were not only doing our regular dyslexia tutoring, but we were also doing emergency housing. We had dozens of community members who were living on campus. We were feeding 3 meals a day to the community. And then we were a donation center where people could come and get diapers and bleach and mops and food and whatever they needed. Somebody had organized a school bus full of donated items, and to see that school bus roll up, and I'm crying in the parking lot, from something that scale all the way down to a Columbia Gas repairman came to campus. He's like, I have an hour lunch break, put me to work. And you hand him a mop because there's mud dust on everything. And all the way down to that scale of care. And then you're just sitting there crying to see that, we're such a divided country, and we argue about all these things and disagree on all these things. People who were offering us help or coming to us for help, all of that fell away. And it was just a shared humanity. It was just humans and spirits needing and giving help. That's what carried me through, because it was beautiful to see people caring for people that they knew, but also just random strangers.
That's beautiful. I think we all need to hear those stories too, about our country and who we are and who we can be, and that humanity that shines through in times of crisis. You hate the loss and the people who lost their lives and folks who lost their homes and everything, but we all need also those touchstone moments that we are sometimes better than we believe ourselves to be, and those moments bring that out.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the most inspiring thing about the work you do, that you get to do every day? What inspires you in your work?
One of the things that I've been able to build into our literary programming is more things for our young writers, because Writers Workshop and our online classes and our retreats are primarily geared toward adults. And our executive director and I sat down and we were talking about what we could add in. And I was like, we need something for the young people. So we have some writers residencies where writers go into the high schools and work with the teachers there. These high schoolers get to try their hand at writing a poem for the first time, or to hear other Appalachians who are published, well-respected writers hear their work for the first time, or to work with them for the first time. And then we've got a week-long junior version of the Writers Workshop where the high schoolers come stay on our campus for a week and work with amazing writers and be in community with other young people who like to write. And they get to try all these different genres and have real growth opportunities where they can discover, like, oh, I like writing fiction. I've never tried this before. That has got to be my favorite thing because it's something I wish I'd had as a young person. I think that would have helped me a lot. And a lot of my writer friends, when they look at what we're doing with Ironwood, this creative writing summer camp, they say, oh, I wish I would have had that. And it's such a healing, beautiful, inspiring thing. And when these young people tell me or write anonymously in their evaluations that this was one of the best weeks of their year, or they felt accepted and cared for, or they didn't know if they were going to fit in, but now they have lifelong friends. That brings me so much joy and comfort and inspiration because especially young people, if you change an angle, change their trajectory just a little, at the end of their life, they could be miles away from where they would have been. And so it's a really powerful time to give the gift of community and creativity and validation to young folks.
That's beautiful. Ironwood sounds like a very intentional name.
Yes.
Isn't it? And what is the power behind the name Ironwood?
I wanted a nature image to kind of ground us because it's not just about Kentucky. It's about primarily the Appalachian region. A lot of our students don't have creative programming in their schools. They don't have, when you live rural, you don't have as many people that you can interact with who might be creative peers. And so I was just looking through lists of Appalachian plants, and I found one, the American hop hornbeam or something. This tree is called ironwood. And so then I Googled ironwood, and I discovered that almost every region of the world has a plant that they call ironwood. It's a different tree, it's a different bush, but it has the same kind of physical, hard core that you can't see from the outside. You can't tell that this tree has an exceptionally hard heartwood. The core is strong. You can't see that from the outside. And you only see that or know that if you're from that region or have experience with that plant. And I thought, people were like that even though we might be different from all these different regions of the planet, we all have this same kind of universality. We're all joined together with this idea that, you can't see our strength from the outside. You have to get to know us. And sometimes we don't know our own strength until we get through certain experiences in life. And so I found there was a specific example in Appalachia, but that also connected us, to the broader humanity.
First of all, you're just educating us and inspiring us. It's beautiful. That's a beautiful story. When you think of your own work, your own body of work, is there something that holds a special place in your heart? And if so, what is it and why?
If I think about my own writing, I'm currently working on an unpublished manuscript that I think is very important for me because my father was an immigrant. And so that side of my family is very new to this country. He came over in the 60s. But my mother's family came here like in various waves of immigration going all the way back to 1635. Like we were some of the first colonizers that came here. And so in looking at these waves of immigration and the loss of our ancestral cultures that most Americans experience. Like you can say, oh, I'm German, but you don't know anything about Germany or German foods or traditions. What does that mean? Because all of those ancestral cultures were lost or stolen from us, depending on our heritage and background. And so we're American. What does that mean? And then also, what does that mean particularly for white folks in the context of American history that was so terrible for other groups of people, and kind of facing that and reconciling that. And what does that mean for me personally living here in Appalachia, raising children, and where do we go for a future by examining our past? So I think that's very personal for me. As an editor, I'm very excited that we have Untelling is the literary and arts magazine here at Heinemann. We just put our second issue out, and I'm very honored to help usher each of those issues in because Untelling is a stage that more Appalachian artists and writers and photographers can have their work shared. I think that's a beautiful thing. It's a print journal. It's full color. And like I said, it's if I'm the doorway that these other artists and writers can get their work out to the broader readership, then that's a happy, honorable place for me to be.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
February is a wonderful time to show some love to our neighbors in need in Appalachia. Your generosity has a direct and positive impact in the lives of people in need in Appalachia every day. It is the unwavering support of faithful friends like you that make this work possible. Many of our supporters are beginning to plan and envision what kind of legacy they want to leave to support the causes that are near and dear to their hearts. CAP is happy to provide a safe and easy experience for people to create a will and support CAP through non-cash gifts. Through our partnership with Free Will, CAP offers our donors the ability to create a will online and alter it at no charge. Our partnership with Free Will also includes their Smart Giving Suite, which allows donors to give through their IRA, donor advised funds, and stock online, in addition to creating a will for free. In recent years, Appalachia has faced unrelenting challenges, including the pandemic, inflation, and back-to-back natural disasters. You can make a life-changing impact and leave a legacy of hope in Appalachia. To learn more about non-cash giving opportunities, please visit christianapp.org/more ways to give.
We know that lots of people have never visited Appalachia. What is one stereotype that you wish you could correct? You talked about raising your own children here and coming back to that area to raise your children, but we know there's also lots of stereotypes about Appalachia. So where would you land there?
It'd be hard to pick a small one because there's so many terrible ones. But I think the bigger overarching thing is just that people who've never been here think that everybody here is the same. You know, and they can put good things on that. They can put bad things on that. Until I was 15, I'd never come to Appalachia because I was from the Ohio-Michigan border up there by Lake Erie. I came here with thoughts about this place because that's what I'd learned from TV and movies. And I would like people from out of here to realize, and even people in here to realize, that not everybody here is the same. Because even in Appalachia, we have our own stereotypes about our neighbors. And I would like people to understand that it's more complex and nuanced and beautiful than that.
Yeah. What is your dream for Appalachian writers in the years to come?
Well, that we all get really good book deals. We all get rich and famous. Well, that's not going to happen. But I think at the core of that is just increased opportunities, things like untelling, things like more publications, because not only is that good for, all these things we've talked about, telling our own stories, the power and the healing in that, but also I would like increased readership from outside of here. So if somebody's a New York writer, they're not like a New York writer. But if you're living in Appalachia, you're an Appalachian writer. It doesn't matter what you're writing. And so we're kind of pigeonholed as this regional literature. The stuff that's coming out of here is amazing and everybody should read it, and not just people within the region. So I wish we had more outsiders reading us.
Believe it or not, our time flew by. I feel like I say that every single episode. We go and I'm like, I got 15 questions. And then I look up and I'm like, oh my gosh, where did the time go? I need more time. We always end our show with this question, and we'd love to see your answer on this. So the mission statement of Christian Appalachian Project is building hope, transforming lives, and sharing Christ's love through service in Appalachia. Hope, transformation, love, and service. Which one resonates with you the most when you think of Appalachia?
I'd have to say transformation. And I think that's just because across the board, if I think my grandmothers were born in 1914, and if I think from their generation to my kids who were born in 2014, like in that 100 years, we have had more change, social change, technological change than any other group of generations on the history of humans. And things are changing so fast. Even now, the things I grew up with are obsolete. Like my kids aren't having a childhood like I had, and it's just one generation. And for us as Appalachians or Americans or just people living in the world, we need to carry the good of our past into the future. But a lot of times we're afraid of the future and the change, and we should be cautious. We shouldn't just take everything just because it's there. But there's a lot of power in moments of change. And so it's a very tense kind of thing when we're in periods of transformation, but we're definitely there. And so I think I resonate the most with that one, the power of the moment and also the caution of it.
the power of the moment, and the caution. Melissa, it has been an absolute joy to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for your time. We so appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Our guest today has been Melissa Helton, Literary Arts Director at Hyman Settlement School. We hope you've enjoyed the show today and you'll check out next week's episode. Tell your friends to check us out too. You can follow the work of Christian Appalachian Project on all social media channels. You can also find the podcast at wearecap.org/podcast or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. If you like the show, please take a moment to leave us a review. We truly appreciate it. And be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. We'll see you next week.